Good
Good
morning.
morning and welcome to Writer's Chat. Sorry for that little pause. I was waiting for somebody else to start, and it's me today. We're so glad you're with us this morning for this episode of Writer's Chat. And I am joined by my co host, Brandy Bro. I'm Norma Poor. And as I said, we're so glad you're here this morning, especially if you're in person and watching the recording later. So glad you found us. And if you haven't made it over, we have a new YouTube Writers Chat channel. So be sure to check that out. And as a reminder, we're here every Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern. And as we like to say around here, go around the globe to find your time. And now I'm going to turn it over to Brandy to introduce our guest this morning.
Today we have one of our own. Cathy Rueter is with us, and she is going to talk about the name game. But let me first introduce you officially. Cathy Rueter is a former bridal accessories designer and community journalist who now stitches together stories with a dash of romance and a slash of death. Whew. Find out more about her games We Play Christian Mysteries featuring fashion design in one form or another at cathyrueter.com. And you can also find her on social media at Cathy Rueter Writer. Cathy, we're so glad you are here with us today. And I'm particularly excited to hear what you have to present about names because when we think of names, naming our characters, titling our work, it's one is we feel like it's like one small aspect, but it's not really one small aspect. And I'm actually just amazed that you have enough to carry an entire show with, and you have so much more than I've ever thought about. So please share with us what you have today.
Okay, well, thank you for having me on. This presentation started quite a few years ago when I was starting to name my characters in the Games We Play Murder Mystery series. The first novel, my debut novel, is coming out in May with Elk Lake Publishing. It's called Murder May I. And all of the stories and the little ones that I actually published myself. This is the first one, and there's another one coming out. This one's It's Beginning to Look a Llama Like Christmas. Those are cozies. Those aren't actually murder mysteries, but they introduce little characters around the big stories, the big novels that I'm doing with Elk Lake, and Elk Lake's fine with it. So I'm very blessed that way. And we'll actually get into some of that a little bit with working with publishers and working with yourself as a publisher. There is so much to this that I keep adding every single time that I give this presentation because it's not just naming our characters. There's also brand names that you can and may not put into your stories. And I've got that's just recently been added because I had that experience myself. There is reader expectations. There's a little story in here about that. So we're going to get into this. If you have questions, please put them in the chat and I will get to them afterwards. But I'm going to blow through this because there's a lot. I will also be reading word for word some things, mostly the legal stuff, because I want to get the words right when it comes to legal stuff. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully, if I can see it here. Let's see. That's the one thing I didn't pull up was my my presentation. That might help. Let's see here. It used to be, as you can see here, well, you can't see it because I'm not sharing my screen yet, but this used to be called Name That Character. But like I said, it came up. Okay, let's see here. How can I share my screen
I
with you
like the name
guys?
game. I actually heard that song on the radio just the other day.
I just found out that there was a song named that. Um, okay, I am sorry. I am not doing a great job of getting it on here. Where are you guys? Are you there? Share screen and hopefully I can share the right one. Okay, let's see if we can do this. Sorry for being fiddly here.
That's okay. Technology. As David said in our chat, live by technology, die by technology.
Exactly. Yeah, and you think you get everything ready, and it's like, no, sorry.
Now, Pam comments names are super important, especially to God. His names are his character. I can't start writing until I have good names for my characters.
Right.
Exactly. Okay, can you guys see it should be like in purple, the name game?
We can. It
We
is
see
not in
your,
presenter mode. So if you wanted to do that, that was your option. We do
Yeah,
see all your slides on the side, but yes,
there
we
we
see
go.
it.
there you
Okay,
go.
how we doing there?
That looks good.
All right, so this is the name game, formerly name that character. And so because I just recently updated it, there still might be a little bit of references to name that tune because that's what the whole former one was about. And we are going to quickly go over copyright and trademark, the differences, which includes libel, slander, and defamation of character. Um, Let me see. I had these all backwards. Man, I thought I was so organized this morning. Okay, so our our characters are fictional, so we don't have to worry about them. They're make-believe characters. We don't have to worry about libel, slander, and defamation, right? Well, you need to take note of this, especially if your character is seen in a bad light. And I will explain that a little bit further in a minute, but first let's discuss what libel, defamation, and slander is. Libel is a published false statement that is damaging to a person's reputation, a written defamation. So there's a big difference between written, spoken, and action. Uh, the slander is the action of it, but it's of making a false spoken statement damaging to a person's reputation. And defamation is the action of damaging the good reputation of someone with either slander or libel. So those are important to remember. And those grumpy characters are thinking they shouldn't have probably put a slanderous name on their character. So, 5 things that cannot be. Oh, first of all, I should have asked, did all of you get the notes that were, you don't need them, but if you want to fill them in, I've left places for notes. Do anybody need time to go get that? And I can't see your chat, so somebody's going to have to tell me.
Yeah, we have a couple people I think that have notes. For anybody that's wondering that might be watching the replay, they're on our Writers Chat Facebook members page. And if you are not a member, you would need to join to get them, but you could join.
Okay. So you can fill in along here if you want. You don't need it, or you can come back with the notes later and get what you want. Okay, so 5 things that can't be copyrighted are choreography, as in what we're seeing up here with the dance, speeches, and other performances, unless they have been videotaped, notated, or transcribed before or after they're presented. Now, like I said, I'm going to be reading a lot of this at first, mainly because this is all legal stuff and I just know it because of my research. I am not a lawyer by any means. Um, Other things that can't be copyrighted are ideas, methods, or systems, like the um, the mathematical principles here, formulas, business procedures, and concepts. Things like that can't be copyrighted. Commonly known information like calendars and dates and times, charts, heights, weights, rules of measurements, and even common phrases such as water is wet. Everybody knows water is wet. That cannot be copyrighted. Fashion, which is how I got started with all this because my protagonist is a fashion designer. I used to design bridal accessories, so I write what I know. And fashion cannot be copyrighted. However, mainly because it's a useful article, but specific fabric patterns can be. An example is the Burberry plaid. That can be copyrighted. So my character, who is Jen Clark, she is interested in this fact particularly because of being a fashion designer. She also gets into the different types of patterns. So she needs to know when and where she can use stuff and how she can't. So that's how I got started into this whole thing of what can and what can't be copyrighted. Also, names. Names can't be copyrighted, however. So we'll get to a however. Uh, Names, titles, short phrases, or expressions, recipes with some exceptions. And I'm not going to get into the exceptions on any of this because we would be here for days. But another exception, work itself. So an example is Scout from To Kill a Mockingbird. It would be the word Scout as a name would be copyrighted as part of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. So we've got that. Now, trademark. Trademark is a little bit different, and that in that instance is it's basically saying, let's see here, what are we on the next one? Here we go. To trademark or not. And names can be trademarked, which is saying I own the use of this particular name if it's used for business. So a trademark law protects names, logos, and other marks of distinction that are used in commerce. To register your name as a trademark with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office or the USPTO, you must use it in business. You also have to prove a secondary meaning, as in a logo use or a long-term use. Now, here's a quote because I want to get this completely right for you. Trademark registration can help cover a domain name for your website. Like I go under cathyrueter.com as my website. It can help you recover the domain name that has been registered by a cyber squatter under the Anti-Cyber Squatter Consumer Protection Act. Trademark owners can sue to collect damages and recover a domain name from a person who, with a bad faith intent to profit, registered a domain name similar or identical to their trademark. There's a lot of like pages and pages of information about this. Again, not going to get into it. Names that have been trademarked: Beyonce, Sarah Palin, Taylor Swift. And while not trademarked, legal use and contract signatures can become an issue. And it's a side note down at the bottom because a really important one that has just been resolved is Haley Page. If anybody knows Haley Page wedding designs, she was huge a few years ago. And Haley Page Gutman, and she had issues with her former employer, JLM Couture. And I have now put in the former designer because she has just recently been reinstated after, I believe, 3 years. Let me really quick, because I'm going to go over this just a little bit because she herself said, I was young. I did not have this looked over by a lawyer. And I should have, because she basically signed herself away. And that is, let's see, where is Haley? Okay, wedding dress designer Haley Page Gutman regained her rights in May 2024. That's a very important date, May 2024, after settling her lawsuit with JLM Couture. The settlement gave her back her name. They were refusing to let her use her given birth name because she had signed Haley Page Designs away to them when she was very young. The settlement gave her back her name. She can now use it again, her social media accounts, and her intellectual property for 3.5 years, because this started in December of 2020. JLM Couture sued her for trademark infringement, unfair competition, and breach of contract when she was huge at the time of bridal designing. And I cannot remember because it's been a while whether she left or was doing some stuff on the side on her own, but people loved her, followed her. I had followed her since before this. But she had to stop using Haley Page. So she went to I can't even remember the name, so I'm not going to get into it. But she, as part of the settlement with them, she had to pay them a very large amount of money, but she did regain her right to use her name, her trademarks, and her social media accounts. There was a lot of people that were just hanging in there just for her on her accounts because we were hoping she'd be back at one point or another. So, okay, so we're done with her, but it's one of those things. This can't happen to me. I'm just a little writer. Well, at the time, she was just a little bridal designer and lost everything for several years. Granted, she was able to hang in there and did some other things. She started designing shoes, which did not um, go against what she was being sued for, and she used a different name, Chevelle. That's what it was. She went by Chevelle for quite a while because she couldn't use Haley Page. So we have those. And then, okay, what can you do and why should you? Um, other, first of all, I'm going to go, I got to see, make sure. There's the Sandlot defamation suit and the Red Hat Club suit. And I am sorry, but I'm going to have to quick check here. Yeah, we've already gone through some of that. Okay, so do your homework first. It takes work to prove these, but don't give them an opportunity to come after you. Shield yourself. If you are writing something that could be problematic, make sure you tell the truth. Don't do assumptions or opinions. Whoops. According to Lloyd J. Jasson of copylaw.org, he says, whoops is not a defense for libel. So don't even do unintentional defamation if you can help it. So no assumptions or opinions. Research and interview if you don't know firsthand about the story you're talking about, especially if you do historical stories. Now, I have a friend who does historical things for kids, but she researches, and then she puts in little stories that wind through the historical. She's not saying this is a story that happened. She's saying ahead of time, this is how it could have happened around the historical happening that she has researched to death. No embellishments or exaggerations, specifically if you're writing nonfiction or memoir or the specific points of the historical happening. Don't overlook invasion of privacy, and we'll get into that with the Red Hat lawsuit in a minute. And do consider parody or farce. Make it so big and so outrageous that they can't say, that's what happened to me and you're writing about it. One of the ways you can do that is just make it completely outlandish. And also use a disclaimer. It won't always work, but it helps. And one thing you have to remember here at the bottom is it might be true, but is it worth the cost? What is it going to cost you if you write these things? Now, there's people who write memoirs and fictional accounts of something that happened to them. They want to put it into fiction, but then they're worried or later on because of family issues or friend issues, whatever, they've lost that family connection, they've lost that friend connection, and they wish they hadn't. Take that into account ahead of time before you write the thing and put it out in public. Once it's out, it's out. You can't get it back. So I did have somebody that I had talked to about this, and they said, before I wrote the story that I really wanted to write, she prayed about it and she went to talk to a professional psychiatrist, psychologist, something, because she didn't know if what she needed to do was just dump it out of her mind and everything, her psyche, or if she really needed to get it out into the public. And she has at this point decided it's good where it's at, which is in notes with her professional, and that's where it's going to stay for right now. She does not feel the need through praying and through talking to even go into this. You could be different, but at least try those two things first and make that decision. All of this is about making a conscious decision as to whatever you're going to do with names, with brand names, with writing the story. Okay, here we go. Think it can't happen to you, think again. So we have, let me quick find, like I said, I thought I had all these in order, and of course I don't. So we have the Sandlot. Does anybody remember the Sandlot with Smalls? And somebody will have to say yes or no.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're killing
yeah, I
me,
remember.
Smalls.
Okay, well, Smalls is Michael Polydorus in effect. So let's see here. I am sorry about this here. I thought it was so organized. Here we go. So the Sandlot, and it was a defamation suit. Again, reading, it's legal. In 1998, Michael Polydorus sued 20th Century Fox and the producers of the film for defamation. Polydorus was a childhood classmate of David Mickey Evans, the writer and director of The Sandlot, and he claimed that the character Michael Squints, not Smalls, sorry, Squints, Michael Squints Polydorus was derogatory and caused him shame and humiliation. So that was in, they initially agreed to review the case in 1998. Polydorus had a solid case too after all the different little layers that could go on with this, even reportedly producing a photograph of himself from that era that the judge claimed was similar to Squint's, right down to the appellant's thick-rimmed eyeglasses and the color and design of his shirt. Fortunately for Evans and the 20th Century Fox bosses, the same judge failed to see any further likeness between the real Squints and his on-screen counterpart outside of the name and the appearance. He summarily dismissed the suit 3 years after Polydorus filed it. But even so, you're still seeing that this kind of put a blemish on this for the ones that knew about it. It put a blemish on the Sandlot's otherwise unimpeachable legacy, is what they're saying. Another one, and this comes into is it worth getting into somebody's privacy? And that's the Red Hat Society, or the Red Hat Club, excuse me, with author Haywood Smith versus Vicky Stewart. And I'll quickly go over this. This was decided in March 28 of 2008 and viewed in the light most favorable to Stewart as the non-movement. The record shows the following relevant acts. And I'm just, this, it's like pages, and I'm just taking out certain pieces that are relevant to this. Smith was familiar with Stewart's background, and Stewart had talked to Smith about her first marriage. And it happened that Stewart's first husband was killed in a car accident. She received a substantial insurance settlement. She subsequently became engaged to Harold Stewart, and at the time did not know that Harold was engaged to another woman, and shenanigans galore happened. So Stewart had talked to Smith about Stewart's first marriage. Smith believed that Stewart's stories were really good and decided to include them in a book she was writing. In 2002, Smith wrote a novel about 5 middle-aged women who lived in Buckhead, were lifelong friends. They were lifelong friends and were members of a group called the Red Hat Club. Among the many different storylines was a tale about how the women conducted surveillance on one of the club members' husbands who was having an affair and was involved in bank fraud, covertly assessed his email account and personal documents, and how they eventually confronted him with the proof. And they agreed to a very favorable divorce settlement for his wife. Notably, this wayward's husband's name was Harold, which is Stuart's second husband. Um, so Vicky Stewart sued, and it was decided for her. So again, it's one of those things. Are you really sure you want to do this? Are you willing to risk A, this longtime friendship, but B, a suit that could take several years to even decide on? So, and this is where the um, oops is not a defense for libel comes in. All right, here are some sources. And first of all, you can Google it and you can ask permission if you can use that. That's one big thing. I actually have a character, and I'm going to tell you how this happened, and I want you to take note of it because it's something you need if you decide to use the name. So I have a character coming up into a later book, and this person probably won't be seen in a very good light. I Googled the name I wanted to use, and I did do it'll show down in here later. I did a contest with a small group that I'm in and asked them for help on naming this character. And it just so happened that the name that they all liked is the name of a cartoonist, but he's pretty obscure at this point. Because he's not going to be really known for a few more books, I will go back and research all this and make sure I can try to contact him. But I have tried to contact him, let him know what's going to go on. Some people want to go, I'm going to be the bad guy in a book. Perfect. And others are like, nope, don't want any part of it. Don't use my name. And it's an unusual name. It is not his given birth name. It's a nickname, it's a nickname for my character too. But do Google the name. And if you find somebody that is named that, ask for permission if you can use it. I have gotten no response on anything I've tried. However, I am keeping all of those records that I have tried so that if I decide to use this person's name this way, it's going to go into record that I have tried. You can also look up Thomas Register for names and the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And these are not on, I don't believe they're on the resource list. Like I said, I've just updated a bunch of this stuff, so some of it might not be there, most of it is though. I don't know if I added these to the resource list.
They're not on the resource list. I have a quick question. A lot of times in fictional books, in the beginning, you will see these names are not, these names are fictional characters. Any resemblance to real people is just coincidence. How well does that work in your estimation for defending an author?
In my estimation, and like I said, not a lawyer, I would say if you can show that you have looked it up and that it really is a figment of your imagination, or you put it like I did, I put it through a contest. People were saying, yep, this is the one that's got to be it. And I'm not going to explain further about how I did that, only because it'll give the name away.
Hmm.
But if you can put on there, these are fictional names, I think that helps you more to have that in there because at the time of writing it, like the book that's coming out in May has taken me 12 years from beginning to end. And in that time, maybe this cartoonist has blown up and his stuff's become really popular. I'm going to make sure that they know this name has been in there for like the beginning and he wasn't popular then. I couldn't even find him then. Or maybe
Yeah, that
that
makes sense.
person, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, the other thing is maybe they weren't even on the scene. I have a young artist in my family who is getting really popular right now. But 8, 10 years ago, no one knew of him because he was in high school. So it's a bit of a gamble game for it. But I think if you can show good faith, you weren't trying to make sure, you weren't trying to do anything. It was just a name you used. You weren't trying to make it like this person in any shape or form. I think that's really helpful. So I would definitely put that disclaimer at the beginning. So, okay, we're gonna, any more questions right now?
We just have people that are looking to go back through the blanks on the handout, so perhaps we can do that in the after party.
Yes, perfect.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, because some of them, because I moved this around, they're probably having a hard time figuring it out. So, all right, brand name use in story. I just came up about this in my story that I have with that's the Murder Mad book, and I asked my publisher, "Are you okay if I use brand names? They're important to me, the ones that I'm using. I had five of them on there at that time, and she said yes. However, make sure you want to use them." Okay. And then also my editor with them, she was like adamant, you should not be using names. It will, in most cases, it will date your story. So that's one thing to think about that has nothing to do with the branding. It has everything to do with, are you going to date your story if your story picks up and, 10 years down the road, they're still reading it. And it's like, I know this is old because that brand's not even around anymore. So I would check to make sure that it's been a brand that you have known for a long time, and I'll go into that in a minute. So, one, ask the publisher first if it's super important to you. There is one in there that was super important to me that I would have argued if she had not said it was okay. However, you still may not win because I do know an author who is with one of the big ones, and they're like, nope, no brand names. Make one up and or just refer to it by a generic term. And again, editors may get really ferocious about this. So make sure you pick your battles. And here's why I say that. So even if you decide it's worth it, why is it worth it to you? Why are you fighting for this? So the first was I had five different um, items that were in my story, and I'm not going to go through all of them because only one made the cut. But when I decided, I looked each one up. I looked up their backstory, and two of them were like, "Yeah, I love this brand, but it's not that important to me. So why even fuss with it?" Those two came off. And another one, which is really important to me, it's one of my favorite drinks. However, the company that owns that particular part of it is going through some pretty significant legal issues. And I had to decide whether it was worth just mentioning that brand a couple times in my book. Was it worth me having a little check mark on my name as, she likes that, and they're owned by this company, and they're having some questionable tactics right now. So I took that one off. Now we're down to two. I contacted each one of those brands, and one of them, I would love to tell you the name. I don't want to get into anything because this is being recorded. They are a wonderful brand. I have used this brand of item since I was in college in art school. That's as far as I'll go with naming what it is. And I asked them, and originally they said, "That's wonderful. We're so glad you like our product. Yes, you can use it, but we do need to run this by our marketing group, not even the legal group, the marketing group." And they came back a week or two later and said, "We're sorry, the marketing group has rescinded our offer to let you use it. However, because of you enjoying it, we're sending you some items." Well, I already have all their items because I've used them for so long and love them so much. So I have two little sets, and I will be putting those into a contest I'm running for design people, design students. That will be one of the things of the top two that are going to be getting it because I don't don't need a whole nother set. And it's a wonderful product. But I do understand, even though I sent them exactly what I was, how I was referring to them, I went in and copied and pasted right to them. They said, we do see that it's not, um, you're not defaming or anything, but they have to also be careful with their brand name, how I am going to be seen in a light later on down the road. So I do understand their reasoning. Now, the one that I did, I put tea here because I love constant comment tea. It is my go-to when I don't feel good because my mom always gave it to me when I was little. I'm in my 60s. This tea's been around forever. I don't see it going anywhere. And so I did ask them if I could use it, and they were thrilled to let me use it in my story. So I do have that brand name in there, and it's a little gift to my mom. So she doesn't know it's going to be in there until the book comes out. Number four, refer back to number two again and again and again while you go through this decision-making process. And is it worth it? And number five, keep all correspondence. I have every single piece of correspondence that I went to for these different ones that I asked. Okay, so there's the brand name thing. Let's see here. Name that character. So we're going into what was I thinking, but I am going to, oh, reader reaction is a little bit later. Hold on here. So what was I thinking? Is our character's name that important? Is it something that I had one person say, I have names that just fall in my lap and I use them. I have a couple like that. They have come to me, my little characters, and said, this is my name and this is why. And I use them, but I do my homework first before I decide to on purpose. Um, but is it that important? If you find something about your character online about a real person, can you change it a little bit to make it still what you want? And maybe there's a reason why you want it that way. Can you change it a little? Uh, through the famous, the literature, the unusual, the downright strange, is it by accident that you've named this person this? What do you do now? Um, do you love it, or do you love their name, or do they, the characters, love their name or hate it, and why? So, perfect example it's not in a story, it's in a song, but The Boy Named Sue might have been a hit for Johnny Cash, but what if you have a male character named Bonnie? Is he going to love it? Is he going to hate his name? And does that play into his characterization? Does he end up a bad guy because from little growing up he was always teased about his name? Or does he end up to be the pillar of society and live up to, maybe Bonnie was short for a wonderful family name, and he finally figured out the whole thing, the whole story behind it, and lived up to it. So you have to, as the author, you need to make a conscious decision as to what we're naming our characters and how they are going to react to their name or not react to it, because that plays into your characterization. I read a story about a girl who had a boy's name, generally boy's name, and I'm seeing that I'm running out of time here, so I need to get going. But it caught her male sounding name caused confusion to the other main character at first. And it at least got them to meet each other, because he wouldn't have worked with a woman if he had known she was a woman. So that's why I'm saying, how do they react to their names, or how do they not react to their names, and how do other characters react to it? All right, so here's one. And this is about how our readers are, what are our readers thinking about, just like Tobias, and goodness, the S wasn't off there when I first did this. Anyhow, he is very manly, fearless, young, but if he had been given a different name, um, would he have been seen in that young adult science fiction, hard and I can do this type of, would he have been seen in that type of light? And here's another thing that I want to, so it says at the bottom here, what about good old Pacha? In my llama book, I actually had the llama or not the llama, the alpaca named Pacha. And my son, who's in his 30s, but he came up in the time of the Emperor's New Clothes with Pacha, who was the caretaker of the llama. And he's like, you can't name the alpaca Pacha. You just can't, Mom. And he was in, he was like, I can't believe you're doing that. So he explained to me that when he hears Pacha, he thinks of the other character because it was so well known when he was growing up. So another thing where you have to be conscious of who is my main reader, who's my ideal reader, and what time period did they grow up? Was a name I'm using or planning on using in that time frame, and was it good memories or bad memories? So the little character became Paca. Close enough for me. I don't care. And it's short for alpaca. All right. Love it or hate it, but make me read it. And I thought this was hilarious, but I do have to say, if anybody goes to look for this one, there is huge profanity in this Reddit group here. So look at it at your own peril there. He says, I have this peculiarity where the more ridiculous the name, the more likely it is I'm going to like this series. And it just paragraphs of why and dissected that if you take the time to make me laugh, I will love it. If you just throw a name out there that's just regular or just like, yeah, okay, so you're not putting thought into these characters for me. So it's something else we have to keep in mind for our characters or for our readers, actually. All right. You need to figure out whether the name you want is going to be your first, your last. Is it going to be a pen name? Is it going to be a gender neutral? And are you planning on the confusion like the book I talked to you about? It was a romance. I don't read a lot of romances. Sorry, romancers. But I thought this was a cute one, and it was planned confusion. If The one confusion that I ended up having originally in my Murder May I book is there is a part in there where a character is named after another one, specifically named after her. However, I had their names Jen and Janny, and everybody that read it said those two J names are just way too close. I'm having, even though one's a little girl and one's a woman, I'm having too much confusion as I have to stop and think who it is before I get into reading. So we actually changed Janny's name to something else, and I didn't like it. It didn't flow with the story. And I finally realized her brother calls her January. Her name is Riri to him and Ree to other people. So there's ways you can get around this. You can still tell what the story is about, but you need to, again, here, conscious decision as to whether it's a planned confusion or it just ends up being confusion that you're causing your reader, like mine was. So you might have to change things. All right. And if anybody ever knew the Daryl and Daryl syndrome, hi, my name's Larry. I'm Larry. This is my brother Daryl, and this is my other brother Daryl. It was a funny shtick at that time. It was very definitely planned, and it was funny. Everybody knew them at that time, I think. All right, baby people, how we doing on time here? Okay. Uh, Here are three of my top names places, and I will bring them up if I can. I have slides where I've uh, brought them up a little bit, but it's babynames.com. That one's great for the origins of name and random name generator, which is really fun. And then behind the name is popularity, but only in the US. Of dates, I've got some stuff to show you there. And names.org, whether the name is considered overall masculine, feminine, gender neutral. Also, it has names that could be considered, whether they're more likely to be considered a first name or last name. Unless you're like me and my first husband, he had three names that all could be first, middle, and last name. So those don't count. But here we go. Here is names, babynames.com, and this is what it looks like. The reason why I'm putting this up here so that you can see what it looks like is because there's so many that are similar and not as good. This one is fantastic. This is what it looks like. There's a big red star on there because it is my favorite one. And here is some of the things you can put in there. It's a name generator, and I believe it's quite a ways down on the page, but you can put in there the characteristics of your person coming up. Like Jen, she's a little neurotic, but she's the behind the scenes person. She's the doer. So I put in things about her, but then I put in that I wanted a creative name and I wanted a stylish name and I wanted an ambitious name. And here's the three different ones that came in. And I believe this one was actually for Kathy. But I used yeah, it was for my name, but I wanted to find out with her characteristics what these different names would come up. So the creative one came up as Cressida Justine. The stylish one, I can't even pronounce that one. And the ambitious one, I wish Melissa was here today to know that her name is Ambitious. And then here is what behind the names looks like. And this one is really good as well. I've been using this one for a long time because it gives you different. I'm married to somebody who is from Germany. I love using names that are from his history. So I can look up a name and see if what is it Spanish? Is it Indian? Is it German? And then I looked up Johnny, and of course, she's not here today either. But this is where the line is. This one was really long. All the information that was given on this one. I looked up Brandy too, and it wasn't very long. So I just wanted you guys to know that even this one, which is a diminutive of John, sometimes used in the feminine form, but it gives all these different names that you could use and what the variations are. And it's really hard to see here in this small thing here, but it is when it was used the most, which is really good for older characters. And then it also gives categories that it could fall into. Some of it's just kind of goofy, but some of it's really good. And then here is babynames.org. That's what it looks like. So you know if you're on the right one. And I did look up Brandy's name, and it was most popular in the 80s. Brandy, did you know that?
I did
So,
not.
um, in a minute, if we have time, I do have these pulled up. We can play around with them a little bit, but I have some other ones to go through really quick. Here is the contest that I ran, and I had it the date that it was entered, the first name, and I don't have the first name in there because I'm not quite sure I'm going to use it, but we'll see. And the gender, and that could be because if you do a contest with your readers, A, they love stuff like that. B, you could have more than one person that you're asking them about, or a animal that you're asking them about. So I just keep track of everything. I'm a spreadsheet person, so everything's in a spreadsheet. And I put in there the variants because actually the one I did like the best had a variant to it. And that's what they liked the best was the variant. So I do the variants, I do what the different ones where it came from. And you can see I use babynames.com, behind the name, and names.org. Those are my three top ones. And then I also looked up other things that could be, I wanted to make sure whether my people knew, like this one is a minor-ish character, put through the books, but is introduced in certain ones, but not heavily for a while. So that's just something you could keep track of if you want to do a contest. Or I do have, let's see here. Hold on. Oh, I can't find it right now. I'm just redoing my office. But I actually have a three-ring binder because this is a whole series, and I need to make sure, did the guy have blue eyes? Did the girl have blonde hair? What age was she? And they need to be kept in I need to keep track of them so I don't confuse my readers, or they catch me in a, hey, you said she had blue eyes. How come she all of a sudden has brown eyes? You didn't say she was wearing contacts or anything, because the more little oopses they find in your stories, the less likely they are to suspend that sense of belief for you. So just keep track of names either in a spreadsheet like this or however you feel like it. And now for the fun stuff. Okay, so here is a little final thought that this is from, does anybody know who Oscar Zoroaster, Friedrich, Isaac, Norman, Henkel, Emmanuel, Ambrose Diggs is?
Oh my goodness. I have no idea. And you can't put that on a social security application.
No, definitely not. You could, however, put Oscar Diggs, who is Oscar Zoroaster, better known as Oz. And I
Oh,
did not know until last night when I was updating some of this stuff that they are actually thinking about doing a number 2 with the Wicked, and he's going to play quite heavily. They're thinking so far into that. So if you ever do anything where you go back into a book and go forward with something else, make sure you check up on this stuff. Again, just don't take for granted that it is going to be the same information, because stuff like Wicked could have just exploded, and some of your information might or might not be correct anymore. All right, so I am going to let you know that I do have, um, first of all, your takeaway. The character name is a good choice. Make it an informed one, make it a good one, and make it a conscious effort. If you don't take away anything else from this whole talk, make sure that it's a conscious thought behind it. Don't just throw it on there and go, good enough. I like the name. It doesn't have to be worried about, because you don't know. And there are resources, but I also have other resources that I have available for you, and I'm going to stop sharing. Okay. On my website at www.cathyrueter.com, and I'm going to put the links here. This would be to get the do's and don'ts of libel, defamation, and slander when creating a character. There we go. And a whole research list, because there's other information here on how you can do the different types of characters, how you can do the types of names, like using alliteration, which is things like Matthew Murdoch, Reed Richards, Bruce Banner. Those are all alliteration using the same initial, or allusion, alluding to the different things. Like, let's see here. Allusions are made famous to famous subjects so that they don't need explanation. Hopefully your allusion is clear enough that what you're trying to refer to helps the reader of your new stuff to understand it. Or things like symbolism, epithets. Like I said, there is so much information to naming characters, using brand names, all of this, that I could go on for hours. But I will put in those 2 links, and I will answer any questions that there might be.
Cathy, we had a question back a
Uh-huh.
ways. I believe it was from Pam about what do you do if your name is the same as a famous person and you're trying to build your brand based on your name? What do you
Okay.
do?
Um, I am going to tell you that you either, I don't know the specifics about can you use only what they're doing, but I will tell you about a friend of mine who has the same name, exact first and last same name, especially since she got married, as somebody who is another writer. And she has had to start using her middle name because when you look up the other writer, that person writes in a very different genre that she does not want to be associated with. So
Mm.
she now uses her middle initial. I don't know that I would have even done that because it is so diametrically opposed to each other. I may have used both initials or something. I don't know. I'm not in that. I don't know any Cathy Rueters besides me. Um, but it is something where you have to make a decision as to, do I put a pen name in there instead? Do I put my initials? Are When somebody pulls their name up, is it something that if they confuse us, am I going to be mortified or am I going to be like, yep, I'm here? But you also need to make sure whether they already have like CathyRueter.com. If there was a Cathy Rueter out there that was already famous, they probably have all those .orgs, .nets, all that. And so you would have to look up to see if any of that, which could cause you some big problems just in cost and everything of having to fix all of your stuff because it's pulling up wrong. So yeah, that's why I say Google this stuff ahead of time because you have to make that clear decision as to what am I going to do. I will tell you guys, especially if you're in Texas, there is a wonderful lawyer here, and I've worked with her before. She went over my contract with Elk Lake, and she's great to work with. And I don't know for sure, but I think if you had questions like that, she would probably answer you specifically because, like I said, I'm not a lawyer. She knows these things. But in my opinion, I would fix it somehow, initials, or maybe use a nickname. Like my nickname with my whole family is Katrina. I might use Katrina Reuter because that's there. It's me. My family knows it. And yes, it would be kind of a pen name, but not really. So it's one of those conscious decision.
Thank you.
Yep.
Pam, I hope that answered your question. Oh, she said she was thinking more of choosing a character's name. Was that
Oh, if
question?
you're choosing a character's name that's the same as somebody who's already famous, that's one of those where I would go, are you sure you really want to? I'm not sure I would want to even unless you contacted them and they said, go for it, that sounds fun. I'm not sure I would even want to have that hassle, to tell you the truth, because it could become a very expensive hassle. Is it worth it? Is that name that important to you?
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Okay, so here's the do's and don'ts. And I will tell you, this comes off of my website. So if you have a problem getting these, please contact me I'll put in my email too. Only because I lost my whole website last year and my son's helping me build it back up in a new program. And I'm still trying to get used to it. So if you can't reach these things, let me know and I will make sure that I get you the information. But it does go to my website. Of course, it's going to ask you if you want to be part of my email, which I haven't even started yet.
It actually just had me download the document right away without going to your website.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that defeats the purpose. It was supposed to help get people on my website. Okay, well, hey, we're learning, right? So that's good to know. And then here's the other one. This is resources. And I am pretty sure I checked every single one of them to make sure they're up to date because this presentation is a little bit older. Do we have time? Not really to, I was going to say, do we have time to go over some of those fun um, websites? It's up to you guys.
Sure, why not? Maybe just one or two,
Okay. All right.
real
I'm
quick.
going to share my screen again and hopefully hopefully. Let's see here. Can you? No, you can't see that, can you? Okay.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
I just shared the wrong one. Let's see here.
The share screen is always fun. Lots of
Oh,
choices.
especially with this new thing that I'm trying to. Do you see that?
Yes. Google.
Okay. So we will go to babynames.com. And my son has my security set pretty tight. So it might pop up with stuff in the middle of it saying, I don't like this. Okay,
Right.
so this one, A through Z, you can look up names. And I love the things that it has. Like, I'm not a person who follows Zodiac, but if a character really needed they were really into the Zodiac and stuff, you could have names for babies born in the different zodiacs or names for ideas for rainbow babies. And if for those that don't know what a rainbow baby is, they are the baby who is born after a miscarriage or stillbirth. Was involved in a group that did baby um, for the babies that didn't make it. We made little gowns for the parents, and rainbow babies were huge in our group. And I just love the fact that it's being shown what you could name that next baby. Another one is baby name trends. And then also, I was going to tell you, where is it? My resources. Okay. So under this is babynames.com. This is the pros on it are it's good for research for function name, the meanings and the origins behind the words, behind the names, the different categories it could fall under, and the countries that it comes from. It has excellent alphabetization and great extras. The cons on it are it has all kinds of extras. I have lost hours in this website. So maybe just set a timer or something because there is so much here that you can get lost in. So this is one you can see the current trending baby names and different articles that you can go into and why the different actresses named their kids that. Um, Here is all the different ones by the different origins. I love going in the German ones, like I said. The name advice, which is really fun with, that's where I came up with the um, name generators, the nickname generators and stuff, and how you can find different ones. If you just can't come up with a name, start putting it in. And if you don't like it, change the information about it. So there's random name generator. This is the one where I did the Cathy, and now it showed that all of them came back up as stylish. They weren't. It just, when it pops up with the name, it flips back to stylish. But you can have a traditional name. Um, let's see here. We're going to do the real name of Norma, and we're going to ask it to give a philosophical name. Wow, there's your philosophical name, Norma.
Wow,
Closana.
Norma.
All
So see,
right.
it's really fun
Wow.
to come up with some of these. And even if you go, none of these are hitting me right, but it's given me some ideas. So
Mhm.
it's a way to just to get out of your writing head and get out into something fun. So
Right.
there's that one, and I'll do one more here. Let's see here. What's the my favorite one? Oops. Helps if you spell right. And let's do David. So David's origin was Hebrew, and the meaning of it is in these different, so you can see it is used in other languages, but its main origin is Hebrew. And then here's the different meanings that are submitted by different people. and where it can be found and what Wiktionary says about it. But then you keep going and it gives you notable persons who were named David and um, notable persons with the last name of David, which is something else. There's a whole section I could talk about with last names. Like I said, it just keeps adding and adding. And then here's the one I like that I showed you with Brandy's name of when this name was the most popular. And between 1955 and 1961 were the two top peaks of it. But you can see it's been going since the 1900s and it's still on the charts. So that's all I'll go because I know that we have run out of time, but there we go.
Well, thank you so much, Kathy. This has been so informative, and I'm sure
Thank
this will
you.
be one that's going to be rewatched because of all the great information that you've shared, especially the legal information, which we have to be so careful of, especially
Yep,
today, as somebody had mentioned in the chat. People are so eager to sue just to make money over silly things.
exactly.
And unfortunately, oftentimes they win. And so
And
we
that,
have to
yeah,
be so careful. So thank you so much
you're welcome.
for that great wealth of information on how to legally use names. And
Oh,
Brandy, I'm going to turn it over to you to tell us about next week.
Oh boy, you had to say that because I actually didn't bring it up.
while
All
she's
right.
looking
Sorry.
that up, I'll just
Yeah,
tell you
give me a
really
minute and I'll
quick.
take it up.
Uh,
Go ahead,
uh,
Kathy.
while she's looking that up, I'll tell you that if I can figure out how to do it, I am not the most technological savvy. There are a couple other things I could add to this. I will try to link them once it goes up. It's on the YouTube channel now, right?
It will be hopefully this
Yes.
afternoon or tomorrow by
Yep,
Okay.
the
it'll
latest
be
It
at the
on YouTube.
latest.
it'll probably
It'll
be
be on the Writers Chat Show YouTube channel.
okay. I will try to remember how to link the stuff and put that in there. Plus some other stuff that I do have available. It just doesn't fall into what we were talking about today.
You can also post it on our Facebook members page,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
our Writers Chat members page also.
Perfect. Thanks.
And so next week we will be having a panel from on ACFW, that's American Christian Fiction Writers. And so that will be pretty interesting. In order to find out more about that, you might want to join our Facebook members page. That is Writers Chat Members. That's our group actually on there. And then you will be able to get the event notice when we put it out, and you will be able to read the whole synopsis on what we're going to be talking about. So I highly recommend joining that. That'll give you a chance to come and join our show live on Tuesdays because we meet just about every Tuesday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. And we would love to have you join us for the show because when you come and join us for the show, you also get to participate in the after party. So we're going to have the after party in just a moment. So stick around for that for those of you that are here. Thank you so much, Kathy, for all of your wonderful expertise. And this topic has just been a great topic. It'll have me thinking about stuff. I'm going to go back and watch the replay as well.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So for everybody here, please stick around for the after party. And the rest of you, you can watch the replay on the Writers Chat Show YouTube channel. Thank you.
Bye.